Welcome back to my channel, Unleash Your English, my friend. Have you ever felt like you are trying everything to learn English? Watching videos, using apps, reading books, and still your voice stays silent when it matters most. It can feel confusing and even a little heavy, like you are working hard but not moving forward. The truth is, the problem is not you, and it is not your ability to learn. The real problem is that no one showed you the right system that fits your daily life. Today, learning from home is not just possible, it is one of the most powerful ways to grow if you use it the right way. You are not someone who cannot speak English. You are someone who has not yet turned your life into an English environment. And once that shift happens, everything begins to change. What if fluency did not come from studying more, but from living English daily in the life you already have? Chapter 1. Start today. There is a quiet moment that many people never talk about, but it lives inside almost every English learner. It is that moment when you feel ready in your mind. You understand a few words, you have watched videos, maybe even saved lessons. But when it comes to actually speaking, something inside you stops you. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a soft hesitation that says, maybe tomorrow, maybe when I know more, maybe when I feel confident. And slowly, without you even noticing, days turn into weeks, and weeks turn into months, and that small hesitation becomes a habit. Not a habit of learning, but a habit of waiting. What makes this moment powerful is not the fear itself, but the story behind it. Somewhere deep inside, you have accepted an idea that you must be ready before you begin, that you must feel confident before you speak, that you must understand everything before you try anything. And this idea feels safe, it feels logical, it feels like the right way to learn. But quietly, without asking your permission, it becomes the very reason you stay in the same place. The truth is simple, but it takes courage to accept. No one feels ready when they begin. Confidence is not something you bring with you at the start. It is something that grows after you take action. It is built in small, almost invisible moments when you choose to speak, even when your voice feels uncertain. When you choose to try, even when your sentence is not perfect. When you choose to move, even when your mind tells you to wait. And this is where your real journey begins. Not when everything is perfect, but when you decide that perfect is not required anymore. Think about your day. There are so many small moments where language already exists in your life. When you wake up, when you look at your phone, when you sit on your bed, when you walk to the kitchen, when you feel tired or relaxed or busy. These moments do not ask for complex grammar. They do not demand big vocabulary. They only need simple awareness. A simple sentence like, I wake up, I feel tired, I am hungry, I go to the kitchen. These are not small sentences. These are powerful beginnings. Because they are real, they belong to your life, and most importantly, they are something you can say right now. And that changes everything. Because the moment you realize that you already have enough to begin, something shifts inside you. The pressure becomes lighter. The idea of learning English stops feeling like a big mountain and starts feeling like a small step you can take today. Not tomorrow, not next week, not after finishing a course, but today, in this exact moment, in your real life, with your real voice. There is a quiet strength in starting small. It may not look impressive from the outside. No one is clapping, no one is watching, no one is giving you a certificate. But inside, something powerful is happening. You are breaking a pattern that has been holding you back for a long time. You are choosing action over delay. You are choosing movement over hesitation. And every time you do this, even in the smallest way, you are training your mind to believe something new. You are teaching yourself that you are not someone who waits. you are someone who begins. Many people think progress comes from doing big things. Long study hours, difficult lessons, complex grammar rules. But real progress, the kind that stays with you, comes from consistency in simple actions. It comes from showing up in your own life and using English where you already are. It comes from turning normal moments into learning moments without making your life complicated. Because when learning becomes simple, it becomes repeatable. And when something becomes repeatable, it becomes a habit. And habits are what change everything. There is also something very personal about starting today. It is not about competing with anyone. It is not about catching up with others. It is about respecting your own journey. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly at the point where your real progress can begin. And that realization brings a kind of peace that many learners never experience. Because instead of feeling pressure, you start feeling control. Instead of feeling lost, you start feeling direction. You might notice something interesting as you begin. At first, your sentences feel small, your voice feels slow, your thoughts feel simple. But slowly, without you forcing it, things begin to change. Your mind starts remembering words faster. Your tongue starts moving more freely. Your hesitation becomes shorter. And one day, you will say something in English without thinking too much about it. And it will surprise you. Not because it is perfect, but because it is natural. And in that moment, you will understand something very important. Progress was happening all along, quietly, step by step. Starting today is not about doing everything. It is about doing something real, something that belongs to your life, something that you can repeat tomorrow without feeling tired or overwhelmed. And when you choose that kind of start, you are not just learning English, you are building a new relationship with learning itself, one that is based on action, not fear, one that is based on trust, not doubt. There is a quiet confidence that grows from this kind of beginning. It does not come from knowing everything. It comes from proving to yourself that you can move forward even when things are not perfect. And that confidence stays with you. It shows up the next time you try, and the next time, and the next time, until trying becomes natural, and learning becomes part of your life, instead of something separate from it. Right now, whether you realize it or not, something has already changed. You are not just thinking about learning anymore. You are understanding how to begin. And that is a powerful shift. Because once you begin, everything else starts to follow. Not all at once, not perfectly, but steadily, naturally, in a way that feels real and sustainable. And as you sit there, maybe quietly thinking, maybe imagining your first simple sentence, there is a sense of movement that was not there before. A sense that something has started, even if it is small. And that small start carries more power than any perfect plan you were waiting for. Because this time, it is real. This time, it is yours. And this time, you are not waiting anymore. Chapter 2. Your space. There is something powerful hiding in a place you see every day. And because it feels so normal, most people never notice it. Your room, your bed, your mirror, your phone, your door, your table, the small things around you that seem ordinary are already shaping your habits every single day. They are quietly teaching you what to pay attention to, what to ignore, what to remember, and what to forget. This happens without effort, without noise, and without permission. Your surroundings are always speaking to your mind. The only question is whether they are helping your English grow or helping your old habits stay strong. Many learners think English only begins when the book opens, when the video starts, or when study time officially begins. Because of that, they spend most of their day living completely outside the language they want to learn. They study for a short time, then return to a home that teaches them nothing about English. Then they wonder why the words disappear so quickly, why confidence feels weak, why speaking still feels far away. But the problem is not always the lesson. Sometimes the problem is the environment. Sometimes the problem is that English has no place to live in their daily world. This is where everything begins to change in a calm but life-changing way. You do not need a beautiful classroom. You do not need expensive tools. You do not need a perfect setup, a perfect desk, or a perfect plan. You need something much simpler and much stronger. You need your space to become your partner. You need the place where you already live to start gently reminding your mind that English belongs here too. The moment that happens, learning stops feeling like a separate activity and starts becoming part of your normal life. Think about how natural it feels when you walk into your room. You do not need to think hard to know where your bed is. You do not need to study your phone to understand what it is. You do not need effort to recognize your mirror, your door, your window, your chair. These things are already in your world. They are already connected to your eyes, your hands, your routine, your memory. That is why they are so powerful for learning. You are not trying to memorize random words from far away. You are connecting English to things you touch, see, and use every day. And when language connects to real life, it stays longer, feels lighter, and starts becoming real. Imagine waking up in the morning and seeing the word bed in your mind instead of only seeing the object. Imagine touching the door and hearing the word door inside your thoughts. Imagine looking at your phone and thinking phone, screen, message, battery. Imagine standing in front of the mirror and saying mirror, face, smile, tired, ready. These are not just vocabulary words anymore. These are bridges. They connect your daily life to English in a simple, natural, and powerful way. And that is exactly what many learners have been missing. They were trying to push English into their minds with effort when they could have invited it gently into the space they already live in. There is a beautiful kind of comfort in this. Your home is familiar. It is personal. It is where you feel most like yourself. So when English begins there, it does not feel like a performance. It does not feel like pressure. It feels closer, softer, more possible. That matters more than many people realize. Confidence grows faster in places where you feel safe. And when your environment starts supporting your learning, your fear becomes smaller because English is no longer something far away. It is in your room. It is on your wall. It is in your hand. It is part of your day. A very small change can create a very big emotional shift. A simple label on a table, a notebook, a mirror, or a bottle can start teaching your brain in quiet moments. You may walk past it 10 times in one day, and each time your mind sees the word again. No pressure, no lecture, no heavy study session, just natural repetition. This kind of learning is gentle, but it is powerful. It works because it does not fight your life. It enters your life and slowly becomes part of it. That is why simple visual cues matter so much. They do not demand energy from you every second. They simply stay there, reminding your brain that English is now part of your world. Your phone can become one of your strongest learning partners too. Many people spend hours looking at it every day, without realizing how much influence it has over their attention. When you change your phone language to English, even in a simple way, something interesting begins to happen. Words that once felt distant start appearing again and again in real situations. Settings, messages, camera, call, battery, gallery, alarm. These words stop being lesson words. They become living words. They become part of actions you already understand. Slowly, your mind stops meeting English only in study mode and starts meeting it in life mode. That difference is bigger than it looks. And there is something deeply encouraging about this whole process. It reminds you that you are not trapped by your current level. You are not waiting for a miracle. You are designing support around yourself. You are making your home work for you. You are turning your room into a place where progress can happen quietly all day long. That is not a small thing. That is wisdom. That is maturity in learning. That is the kind of choice strong learners make, even when no one sees it. Sometimes people believe that serious learning must feel hard all the time. If it feels easy, they think it is not enough. But this belief has hurt many learners. Because the truth is that learning becomes stronger when it becomes natural. Not lazy, not careless, but natural. A word seen every day beside a real object can become more powerful than a word memorized once from a long list. A sentence spoken in front of your own mirror can become more meaningful than a perfect grammar rule you never use. A home that quietly supports your growth can do more for your confidence than 100 moments of pressure. Look around your space and something starts to become clear. Your room is not empty anymore. It is full of learning possibilities. The door is not just a door. The bed is not just a bed. The mirror is not just a mirror. The phone is not just a phone. They are all invitations. They are all waiting to become part of your English journey. Once you see that, your home begins to feel different. Not because the walls changed, but because your awareness changed. And awareness is where so much progress begins. This also changes how you feel emotionally. When English starts appearing in your own environment, you stop feeling like an outsider to the language. You stop feeling like someone standing far away, trying to enter a difficult world. Instead, the language starts coming toward you. It meets you where you are. It enters your routine, your room, your private space, your ordinary moments. That creates a kind of emotional safety that helps learners grow faster. You feel less pressure to perform and more freedom to absorb, to notice, to try, and to keep going. At some point, a small but important thought begins to rise inside you. You start realizing that you do not need a special place to become better. You do not need to wait until conditions improve. You do not need to imagine another life where learning will be easier. This life, this room, this home, this moment can already support your growth. That realization brings control back into your hands. It replaces helplessness with direction. It replaces excuses with possibility. It replaces the feeling of being stuck with the quiet confidence of someone who has found a way forward. And that confidence is not fake. It is built on something real. You are not hoping for progress anymore. You are creating the conditions for it. You are building your English world one small choice at a time. Every label, every visual cue, every small word connected to a real object is a sign that you are taking your learning seriously in a smart and human way. You are not behind, you are not weak. You are becoming more intentional, more capable, and more connected to the language in a way that can truly last. Soon, this environment will begin to do something even more beautiful. It will make regular practice feel easier. Once English has a place in your space, it becomes easier for it to have a place in your routine. What feels visible starts becoming repeatable. What becomes repeatable starts becoming familiar. And what becomes familiar starts becoming part of who you are. That is how quiet changes grow into strong habits. Not through pressure, but through closeness. Not through force, but through design. So when you look around your room now, you may see the same objects as before, but they no longer feel ordinary in the same way. They feel full of potential. They feel ready. And deep down, so do you. Chapter 3. Daily Habit. There is a big difference between wanting to improve and actually improving. And that difference is often much smaller than people think. Many learners imagine progress as something dramatic. They imagine one long study session, one powerful video, one perfect routine, one day of deep motivation that changes everything. That image feels exciting, but real growth usually comes in a quieter form. It comes from something so simple that many people ignore it at first. It comes from doing a small thing again and again until it becomes part of your life. This is where confidence stops being a dream and starts becoming something you can feel. Not because you suddenly became perfect, but because your effort stopped being random and started becoming steady. A lot of people have lived through the same frustrating cycle. One day they feel inspired. They study for 1 hour, maybe even two. They write notes, watch lessons, save new words, and feel proud for a moment. Then life gets busy, energy becomes low. The next day feels difficult, and the routine disappears. After that comes the heavy feeling of guilt. They tell themselves they need to restart properly, so they wait for another perfect day, another fresh beginning, another burst of motivation. But this kind of learning is exhausting because it depends too much on emotion. When motivation is high, they move. When motivation is low, they stop. And because life is never the same every day, their progress keeps breaking apart. This is why a daily habit matters so much. A daily habit protects your growth from your changing moods. It gives your English a place in your day that does not depend on excitement. It becomes something quiet and reliable, something that stays with you even when the day is ordinary, even when you feel tired, even when you do not feel especially inspired. That kind of consistency is not boring. It is powerful. It is the difference between wishing and building. It is the bridge between knowing what to do and actually becoming the person who does it. The beautiful thing is that this habit does not need to be big. In fact, it becomes stronger when it is small enough to carry every day. 10 minutes can change more than 1 hour done once a week. 10 minutes is light enough to fit into a busy morning, a quiet evening, or those soft moments before sleep when the day begins to slow down. And because it is simple, it becomes easier to repeat. That is what makes it effective. Real routines do not win because they are impressive. They win because they survive. They stay. They return. They keep you connected to English even when life is not ideal. Imagine the feeling of waking up and knowing exactly what your first English moment will be. Not something confusing, not something heavy, just something familiar. A few simple sentences about your morning. A little listening while you prepare for the day. A short moment of repeating what you heard. Then imagine the peace of ending your day with the same kind of quiet connection. A few minutes before sleep, a small review, a little listening, a few gentle words. Suddenly, English is no longer a project you struggle to start. It becomes part of the rhythm of your life. And rhythm is where learning becomes natural. What often slows people down is the belief that more is always better. They think if they only study for 10 minutes, it is not serious enough. They think if they are not doing a lot, it does not count. But this belief has stolen progress from many good learners. Because small daily action beats big rare effort almost every time. A short routine repeated with honesty creates memory, comfort, and momentum. A huge routine done once in a while creates pressure and disappointment. One builds trust in yourself. The other keeps proving to you that you cannot keep going. That is why the size of the habit matters less than its repeatability. You do not need something that looks powerful, you need something that stays alive. There is also a deep emotional change that happens when you become consistent. At first, you may think the biggest benefit is better vocabulary or better speaking. Those things do matter, of course, but something even more important begins to grow. You start trusting yourself. You stop seeing yourself as someone who only starts and stops. You stop seeing yourself as someone who waits for the perfect mood. You begin to feel stable. You begin to feel that your improvement is real because it is connected to a real pattern. That emotional stability creates a very special kind of confidence. It is calmer than excitement, stronger than temporary motivation, and more lasting than a burst of energy. A simple routine can be built in a way that feels human, warm, and possible. It does not need to be complicated. A few minutes of speaking simple sentences about your life. A few minutes of listening to easy English, and a few minutes of repeating key words or short lines are enough to keep the language active in your mind. This kind of structure is beautiful because it covers the most important things without making you tired. You speak, so your voice stays connected. You listen, so your ears stay connected. You repeat, so the words stay alive longer. And because the routine is short, it invites you back tomorrow instead of pushing you away. You may notice that different times of day bring different kinds of energy. Morning can be fresh and clear. Evening can be peaceful and reflective. Before sleep can be soft and quiet, a time when the mind is more open to gentle repetition. This means your routine does not need to look exactly the same every day and feeling. Even if the structure is simple, the habit becomes yours when it fits your life. Maybe your strongest moment is after waking up. Maybe it is during lunch. Maybe it is when the house becomes quiet at night. What matters is not the perfect time for everyone. What matters is the real time you can return to. Once you find that, the habit becomes easier to protect. This is where a simple question becomes more powerful than many people expect. When will you practice today? Not in a distant future, not in a dream version of your life, but today. This question gently brings learning out of imagination and into reality. It makes your progress concrete. It takes your desire and gives it a place in time. And that small act of choosing matters. Because when a learner decides when, they become much more likely to actually follow through. The mind loves vague hopes because they feel easy, but vague hopes do not build fluency. Clear moments do. A chosen time is more powerful than a general intention. There will be days when your habit feels easy, and there will be days when it feels harder than usual. That is normal. The goal is not to feel amazing every day. The goal is to stay connected. Even on slower days, even on imperfect days, the routine still has value. In fact, the days when you show up with low energy may shape your future more than the easy days do. Because those are the moments when you prove that your English is not based only on emotion. It is based on commitment. It is based on a quiet promise to yourself. And every time you keep that promise, even in a small way, your identity becomes stronger. That identity matters deeply. For a long time, many learners see themselves as random. They study when they can, stop when they must, and hope things improve somehow. But when a routine enters your life, you begin changing the story you tell yourself. You are not random anymore. You are consistent. You are not someone who only dreams about speaking. You are someone who keeps showing up. You are not behind. You are building. You are not weak because your routine is small. Progress does not need to be dramatic to be powerful. And as the days continue, something beautiful begins to happen. Your 10 minutes stop feeling small. They begin to feel meaningful. They become familiar territory, a place where your mind knows what to do and your confidence knows where to stand. The words come a little faster. The fear becomes a little softer. The habit becomes a quiet signal that English belongs in your life every day, not only on special days. That changes the emotional tone of learning. Instead of feeling like an occasional effort, it starts feeling like a personal rhythm, something steady and real. This is how growth often arrives. Not with a loud announcement, but with a repeated choice. Not with a perfect plan, but with a simple routine you can keep. Not with pressure, but with steady contact. Day by day, your habit becomes more than a task. It becomes proof. Proof that you can stay with the process. Proof that your confidence is being built from something real. Proof that your future fluency is not a fantasy, but a result of what you are quietly doing again and again. And when that truth settles into your heart, your learning feels less fragile and more alive. Your routine becomes your strength, and your strength begins to sound like your own voice. Chapter 4. Speak Simple. For many English learners, the hardest part is not learning words. It is not watching videos. It is not reading short lessons or understanding basic meanings. The hardest part is opening the mouth and letting the language come out. That moment can feel strangely heavy. Your heart becomes careful, your mind becomes crowded, and even the words you know begin to hide. You may understand more than people think, and still become silent when it is time to speak. This silence can feel frustrating because deep inside you know you are trying. You are learning. You are showing up. But when your voice does not move, it can seem like all your effort is stuck behind an invisible wall. This happens to so many people because they are carrying a quiet fear that follows them into every speaking moment. It is the fear of saying something wrong, the fear of making a mistake, the fear of sounding small, slow, broken, or childish. This fear does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers. It tells you to wait a little more, learn a little more, prepare a little more. It makes delay sound wise. It makes silence sound safe. But over time, this fear teaches the wrong lesson. It teaches you that speaking is dangerous and silence is protection. And when that idea grows, even simple English starts feeling harder than it really is. The truth is much kinder than fear wants you to believe. Speaking English is not a performance where you must impress people with perfect grammar and long sentences. It is a skill of expressing simple meaning clearly and bravely. That means you do not need big vocabulary to begin. You do not need advanced grammar to begin. You do not need to sound polished to begin. You need something much more human and much more powerful. You need to let simple English live through your own voice. That is where freedom starts. Not in perfect speaking, but in honest speaking. There is something beautiful about simple sentences that many learners do not fully respect at first. A sentence like, I am tired. I feel happy. I go outside. I need water. I want to rest. These may look small on paper, but in real life they are full of power. They carry feeling, action, need, and thought. They connect language to the present moment. They help your voice move without getting trapped in pressure. They train your mouth to speak what is real. And because they are simple, they are easier to repeat, easier to remember, and easier to trust. That trust matters. Your voice needs a starting place that feels possible. Many people slow themselves down because they try to speak in English the way they would speak in their native language, with long thoughts, complex structure, and perfect form. That creates too much weight at the beginning. The mind becomes busy trying to build something large, and the mouth becomes silent while waiting for everything to become correct. But speaking does not grow that way. Speaking grows through movement. It grows when language becomes active, even in a small form. A short sentence spoken clearly is more valuable than a perfect sentence trapped in your mind. One creates growth. The other creates pressure. This is why simple English spoken is better than perfect English silent. That truth can change the whole emotional experience of learning. It takes the burden off your shoulders. It gives you permission to begin where you are. It reminds you that fluency is not built by hiding until you are perfect. It is built by speaking while you are still growing. And that is not weakness. That is courage. That is how real learners become real speakers. Think about your current moment right now. You may be sitting in a room, holding a phone, feeling focused, curious, maybe even a little hopeful. Already there are many simple sentences available to you. I am sitting. I am learning. I feel ready. I am at home. I have my phone. I want to improve. These are not practice sentences taken from a textbook. These are your life. This is your reality. And when English begins to describe your real life, it starts feeling more natural because it belongs to something true. You are not pretending. You are expressing. That is one of the biggest breakthroughs in learning to speak. You stop chasing difficult examples and start using your own world. You talk about what you are doing, what you are feeling, what you want, what you see, where you are going, what you need. That makes language practical. It makes speaking immediate. It also creates an emotional shift because the language becomes personal. It is no longer just something outside you. It becomes connected to your body, your routine, your day, your thoughts. And once that connection becomes stronger, speaking stops feeling like an exam and starts feeling like a habit of expression. You may still feel nervous sometimes, and that is completely normal. Confidence does not arrive all at once. It grows through repeated proof. Every time you say a small sentence, you give your brain evidence that speaking is possible. Every time you speak again, even if it feels basic, the fear loses a little of its power. Your mouth becomes more familiar with the sounds. Your mind becomes more comfortable with the process. Your relationship with English becomes less formal and more alive. These are not small changes. They are the foundations of future fluency. There is also a very important emotional lesson hidden here. You do not need to be ashamed of simple English. Many learners feel embarrassed when their sentences are short. They think small sentences mean small ability. But small sentences are not a sign of failure. They are a sign of building. They are the bricks. No strong house begins with the roof. It begins with the foundation. And when your speaking foundation becomes strong, everything else becomes easier later. Longer sentences, richer vocabulary, smoother speaking, better flow, all of that grows much more naturally when the simple core is already alive. This is why trying to speak in complex ways too early can hurt progress. It makes learners feel that speaking is always difficult. It creates too many chances for doubt. It pulls attention away from clarity and pushes it toward perfection. But real progress often comes when you simplify with confidence instead of forcing complexity with fear. When you say, "I am busy," instead of trying to build a long explanation, you are still speaking. When you say, "I feel nervous today," you are still expressing something true. When you say, "I will go later," you are still building fluency. The language is moving. That movement matters more than complexity. The more you allow yourself to speak simply, the more freedom you begin to feel. Speaking becomes lighter. It becomes less dramatic. It becomes something you can do in many moments during the day. In the kitchen, in your room, on a walk, while looking in the mirror, while planning tomorrow, while remembering something from the morning. English begins to appear in natural places. That is when it truly starts to belong to you. Not because it is perfect, but because it is present. Yay. And when English becomes present in your daily life, your identity starts shifting quietly. You stop seeing yourself as only a learner collecting information. You begin to see yourself as a speaker using language, even in small ways. That identity change is powerful because it affects how you behave. A learner who thinks like a speaker starts looking for moments to express, not just moments to study. A learner who thinks like a speaker stops waiting for permission and starts using what they already know. A learner who thinks like a speaker becomes more active, more confident, and more connected to progress. This is why your simple voice matters so much. It is not just making sounds. It is building belief. It is proving that your English is alive. It is reminding you that ability grows through use, not through hiding. Even if your sentence is short, it still carries strength because it came from you. It still moves the journey forward because it was spoken, not only imagined. And the more often that happens, the more natural speaking becomes. At some point, you begin to notice that the old fear is no longer controlling every moment. It may still appear sometimes, but it feels smaller now. You understand something deeper. You understand that mistakes are not the end of speaking. Silence is. You understand that a growing voice is stronger than a perfect plan. You understand that real confidence does not come from never being wrong. It comes from continuing to speak even while you are growing. That realization can free a learner in a very deep way. And when that freedom begins to rise inside you, your English changes shape. It is no longer just knowledge stored in your mind. It becomes movement, sound, presence, expression. It becomes something you can carry into the day with honesty and quiet pride. You are no longer standing outside the language, hoping one day you will be good enough to enter. You are already inside it, sentence by sentence, moment by moment, building something real. And in that simple, brave movement of your own voice, a stronger version of you is beginning to appear. Chapter 5. Listen daily. There is a quiet stage in every English journey that many learners do not fully understand at first. They want to speak, and that desire is beautiful. They want to answer quickly, express themselves clearly, and feel free in conversations. But before the voice becomes strong, the ears must become familiar with the language. This is not a weakness. It is not a delay. It is part of how fluency grows in a real and lasting way. Long before a child speaks with confidence, that child listens for many days, many weeks, many months. The sounds enter the mind slowly. The rhythm becomes normal. The patterns begin to feel less strange. Meaning starts to connect without pressure. And then one day, words begin to come out more naturally because they have already been living quietly inside. Many English learners become frustrated because they judge themselves too early. They think, I am listening, but I am not speaking enough. I hear English, but I still feel slow. I understand some words, but not everything. And because they do not see immediate results, they begin to treat listening as something weak or passive, something secondary, something less important than speaking. But listening is not a side activity. It is one of the deepest forms of training. It teaches your mind how English sounds when it is alive. It teaches your ears how words connect, how sentences move, how emotion changes the voice, how common expressions appear again and again in real use. Without that deep familiarity, speaking remains heavy. With it, speaking begins to feel lighter. There is a big difference between studying English and living around English sounds. When you only study, the language can stay inside books, notes, and isolated examples. But when you listen daily, English starts becoming part of the atmosphere of your life. It enters the background while you walk, while you sit quietly, while you rest, while you do simple things at home. And that changes something important inside you. The language stops feeling like a visitor and starts feeling more familiar. It stops sounding like something far away and starts sounding like something your mind is learning to recognize. That familiarity matters more than many people realize. The mind speaks more easily when the sounds no longer feel foreign. This is why understanding often comes before fluency. People sometimes imagine fluency as fast talking, smooth speaking, perfect response. But underneath all of that is deep listening. The ear must first learn what natural English feels like. Not just what words mean in a dictionary, but how they sound in motion, how they change in real speech, how simple phrases repeat in daily life. When your ears hear these patterns again and again, your brain starts organizing them quietly. You may not always notice it in the beginning. It can feel invisible. But then, one day, a phrase appears in your mouth more easily than before, or a sentence in a video feels instantly clear, or a common expression sounds familiar instead of confusing. Those are signs that the listening is working. Growth is often happening long before you can fully see it. That is why simple content matters so much. Many learners hurt their confidence by listening to material that is too fast, too complex, or too far above their level. Then they think the problem is their ability, when the real problem is the difficulty of the input. Listening should not feel like drowning. It should feel like stretching. A little challenge is healthy, but total confusion creates fear and mental exhaustion. When you choose simple English and return to it daily, you create a different experience. You begin to hear words you know. You begin to catch phrases more often. The brain starts connecting sound and meaning with less struggle. That creates clarity, and clarity builds confidence. Confidence makes it easier to stay consistent. There is also something deeply comforting about daily listening because it does not always demand full energy from you. You do not need a perfect desk. You do not need a long study session. You can listen while walking in your room, while making tea, while resting on your bed, while sitting quietly in the evening, while getting ready for sleep. These ordinary moments become powerful because they allow English to enter your life without pressure. And when something enters life gently but repeatedly, it often stays longer. The language becomes associated with real moments, not only with effort. That gives learning a softer, more natural place in your routine. Imagine hearing the same easy audio every day for several days. At first, it feels ordinary. Maybe you catch a few words. Maybe some parts pass by too quickly. But then something begins to happen. A sentence you missed before suddenly becomes clear. A phrase that sounded strange yesterday starts sounding familiar today. A word that once disappeared in the middle of speech now stands out clearly. This is one of the most encouraging experiences a learner can have, because it proves that repetition is not boring when it is working. It is not a sign that you are stuck. It is a sign that your brain is learning through return. Every repeated listening makes the path smoother. Every return removes a little more confusion. Every familiar sound makes future speaking easier. This is why listening once and moving on is such a common mistake. Many learners are always searching for new material, new videos, new lessons, new channels, new content. They think variety will make them improve faster. Variety can be helpful, but too much of it can prevent depth. When you always move on after one listen, your mind stays at the surface. It never gets the full benefit of familiarity. It never gets the joy of hearing something become easier. It never gets enough repeated contact for the sounds to settle deeply. But when you stay with one simple piece of audio or one short video and let it become part of your days, the language begins to sink in more naturally. You stop being a collector of content and start becoming a real learner of sound. There is a powerful emotional change in that. At first, English may sound fast and slippery. It may feel like the sentences are running away before your mind can catch them. But daily listening changes that feeling little by little. The sounds stop rushing past like strangers. They begin to slow down inside your awareness, even if the audio itself has not changed. You start recognizing where one word ends and another begins. You begin hearing repeated structures. You begin noticing that the language is not chaos. It has patterns. It has music. It has habits of its own. And once your ears start recognizing those patterns, the fear begins to soften. You feel less lost. You feel more connected. That sense of connection is one of the first true signs of progress. The more you hear, the more you speak. This is not just a nice sentence. It is a real principle of growth. Your mouth uses what your ears have learned to accept. When the ear becomes familiar with simple English every day, speaking no longer feels like creating something from nothing. It begins to feel like returning something that has already entered you. A sentence you have heard many times becomes easier to say. A rhythm you have listened to often becomes easier to imitate naturally. A phrase that once felt foreign starts feeling possible in your own voice. This is how listening supports speaking in a very deep way. It prepares the ground quietly so your voice can rise with less fear. And when you choose one audio or one simple video to repeat daily, you are doing something much smarter than it may look. You are giving your mind a stable training space. You are allowing your ears to build memory instead of starting from zero every day. You are making the language more predictable, which helps reduce anxiety. You are also proving to yourself that progress does not need to be dramatic to be real. It can be gentle, steady, and almost invisible at first. That kind of progress is often the strongest, because it is built on repetition instead of temporary excitement. You may notice that after some days of listening, your attention becomes sharper. You stop hearing only noise and start hearing details. You begin to expect certain words before they arrive. You begin understanding not just isolated vocabulary, but the flow of simple ideas. That is a beautiful moment because it means your English ears are waking up. They are becoming trained. They are learning how to stay with the language instead of getting pushed away by it. This deserves real respect. Listening is not passive when it is daily, focused, and repeated. It is quiet training, and quiet training often creates powerful results. There is also a deep comfort in knowing that you do not need to understand everything for listening to help you. Many learners think every listening session must be fully clear, but growth does not work like that. Sometimes your ears are learning even when your mind feels unsure. Sometimes you are becoming familiar with rhythm, stress, pronunciation, and common patterns before you can explain them. That is still progress. That is still learning. You do not need complete understanding in every moment to be moving forward. You only need continued contact with the language in a way your mind can survive and slowly absorb. This changes your identity in a quiet but important way. You stop seeing yourself as someone who only tries to catch English when there is time. You start becoming someone who trains their ears every day. That identity is powerful because it makes your effort feel real and continuous. You are not behind. You are building. You are not guessing your way toward fluency. You are strengthening one of its deepest foundations. Day by day, your ears become calmer, clearer, and more ready. And as that readiness grows, your whole relationship with English begins to soften. It begins to feel less like a struggle and more like a voice that is slowly coming closer. After enough honest listening, the language no longer feels so far away. It starts sounding familiar in small but meaningful ways. Your mind begins to recognize more, your confidence begins to settle, and your voice begins to sense that it has something real to work with. That is where quiet clarity turns into strength. That is where repeated sound becomes future speech. And somewhere inside all of this gentle daily contact, your English is becoming more alive than before. Not through force, but through steady presence. At Chapter 6, Repeat Power. There is a reason children learn language with a kind of quiet magic that adults often admire. They do not sit and ask whether repetition is boring. They do not worry that saying the same sentence again means they are not smart enough. They do not judge the process too early. They hear something, they say it again. They hear it again, they try it again. And through that simple cycle, language begins to sink deep into their mind and body. What looks ordinary from the outside is actually one of the strongest forces in learning. Repetition is not empty. It is how language moves from effort into ease, from memory into instinct, from something you think about into something you can actually use. Many English learners understand words once and then quickly move on. They see a sentence, say it one time, maybe two times, and then go searching for something new. It feels productive because it creates the feeling of movement. New words, new videos, new notes, new lessons, new content. But there is a hidden cost to always chasing something new. The language never gets enough time to settle. It visits your mind, but it does not stay. It touches your memory, but it does not become part of your speech. This is why so many learners feel like they are always studying and still not speaking with ease. They are meeting English often, but they are not staying with it long enough for it to become automatic. That is where repetition becomes powerful. When you repeat the same sentence many times, something special begins to happen. At first, it feels conscious. You notice every word. Your mouth moves carefully. Your attention stays close to the sounds. Then after a few more repetitions, the sentence begins to soften. It becomes easier to say. The fear reduces. The movement becomes smoother. By the time you have stayed with it long enough, that sentence no longer feels like a stranger. It starts feeling like something your mouth knows. That is a very important change, because fluency is not built only by understanding. It is built by familiarity, and familiarity grows through return. This is why repetition turns effort into ease. The first time you say a sentence, it may feel slow. The second time, a little lighter. The third time, clearer. After several more repetitions, the same sentence that once felt heavy may start coming out with surprising comfort. That comfort is not an accident. It is the result of your mind and mouth learning to work together. Repetition gives the brain a chance to stop treating the sentence as new. It gives the tongue a chance to stop being nervous. It gives the whole body a chance to relax into the language. And once that relaxation begins, speaking feels less like a struggle and more like a skill you can trust. Think about simple daily phrases like, I am getting ready, I need some water, I feel a little tired, I will do it later, I am going outside. These are not just basic expressions. They are the kind of sentences that can become part of your real life. If you repeat them again and again over days, they begin to live inside you. Then one morning, when you are actually getting ready, or feeling tired, or needing water, the sentence appears more naturally. You do not need to build it from the ground every time. It arrives faster because repetition has prepared it for real use. That is how repetition becomes practical. It is not just exercise, it is preparation for life. Many learners avoid repetition because they think it is boring. This is one of the most common traps. They want learning to feel exciting every minute. They want constant novelty. They want the feeling of discovering something fresh. That desire is understandable, but it can quietly slow their progress. Because the truth is that mastery often looks simple from the outside. It often looks repetitive. A singer repeats lines. An athlete repeats movements. A child repeats words. A strong learner repeats useful language until it becomes easier, cleaner, and more natural. Repetition is not boring when you understand what it is doing. It is building ease. It is building readiness. It is building the kind of confidence that does not disappear under pressure. There is also something deeply comforting about repetition, because it removes the feeling of starting from zero every day. When you return to the same sentence, the same phrase, the same expression, you are not facing a new mountain. You are walking a familiar path. That matters emotionally. It reduces fear. It makes practice feel possible even on low-energy days. You do not need to impress yourself. You only need to return. And in that return, something quiet but powerful happens. The language becomes more stable inside you. Your voice becomes more certain. Your brain starts predicting the next word more easily. That is the beginning of automatic English. Automatic English does not mean perfect English. It means the language begins to come with less struggle. It means your most useful phrases stop feeling like heavy objects you must carry with both hands. They begin to feel lighter, quicker, more available. That kind of change is one of the most encouraging things a learner can experience. Because once you feel even a small part of the language becoming automatic, you stop seeing fluency as something mysterious. You realize it is built sentence by sentence, repetition by repetition, day by day. That realization creates belief. And belief is not a small thing. Belief changes how you show up. It changes how long you stay with the process. It changes whether you continue when things feel slow. If a learner says one sentence 10 times with attention, that learner often gains more speaking power than another learner who reads 10 different sentences only once. The second learner may feel busier, but the first learner is building depth. Depth matters because speaking in real life does not reward how much content you have seen. It rewards what your mind can access quickly and what your mouth can say smoothly. Repetition creates that access. Repetition creates that smoothness. It teaches your speaking system to trust familiar patterns. Over time, those familiar patterns become the base from which larger speaking can grow. There is a beautiful emotional shift that happens when repetition starts working. In the beginning, practice can feel like proving something. You may feel pressure to do well, to sound better, to be faster. But repetition slowly changes the mood. It makes learning feel more grounded, more stable, less dramatic. You stop chasing performance and start building strength. That is a healthier and more lasting way to grow. You do not need every practice moment to feel exciting. You need it to be effective. You need it to leave something behind inside you. Repetition does exactly that. It leaves traces. Then those traces become pathways. Then those pathways become habits of speech. When you repeat one useful sentence several times, you are doing more than practicing pronunciation. You are training confidence. You are teaching yourself that the sentence is safe, possible, and usable. The first time may still carry doubt. The fifth time may carry less. The 10th time often carries something new. A sense of control. A sense of familiarity. A small but meaningful feeling that says, yes, I can say this. That feeling matters because speaking confidence is not built only through positive thinking. It is built through repeated evidence. Repetition gives you evidence. It shows you that something difficult can become easier in your own voice. This is why it helps to stay close to daily phrases and common expressions. The language you repeat should belong to your life. It should be something you can imagine using at home, while walking, while planning your day, while expressing a feeling, while doing something simple and real. Then repetition does not feel empty. It feels connected. A phrase like "I am a little busy today" or "I need to finish this first" becomes more powerful when it matches life. The mind keeps it more easily because it has purpose. The heart accepts it more easily because it feels useful. That is when repetition becomes part of identity, not just part of practice. And this identity shift is one of the deepest gifts of repetition. For a long time, some learners see themselves as people who understand but cannot speak easily. They see English as something that stays outside their natural flow. But when repetition becomes part of daily practice, that story begins to change. You begin to feel the language entering your speech more smoothly. You begin to trust familiar expressions. You begin to notice that your voice is not always fighting anymore. That changes how you see yourself. You are not someone randomly hoping for fluency. You are someone building automatic English. You are training your speaking system in a real and patient way. You are becoming more capable than you were, not by force, but by return. There will still be moments when speaking feels slow, and that is normal. Repetition does not remove every challenge overnight, but it does create a strong inner base. It gives you phrases you can depend on. It gives your mouth more comfort with English movement. It gives your mind less panic when it is time to speak. And all of that begins to show in real life. A sentence comes faster. A common phrase feels easier. A response arrives with less fear. These are not small things. They are signs that practice is turning into ability. What once felt repetitive in a dull way begins to feel reassuring in a powerful way. You realize that every return is doing something. Every familiar sentence is becoming more yours. Every repeated phrase is taking one more step away from effort and one more step toward ease. And somewhere inside this simple process, a stronger kind of confidence begins to rise. Not loud confidence, not fake confidence, real confidence. The kind that comes from knowing you have stayed with the language long enough for it to start staying with you. Chapter 7. Real confidence. There comes a moment in every honest learning journey when something inside you begins to feel different, even before the outside world fully sees it. The words may still be simple. The sentences may still be short. The progress may still feel quiet, but deep down, you know something has shifted. You are no longer standing at the beginning, wondering if you can do this. You are no longer looking at English like a distant mountain that belongs to other people. You have touched it with your own effort. You have brought it into your room, your routine, your ears, your mouth, your day. And because of that, the relationship has changed. English is no longer only a goal. It has started becoming part of your life. This is where real confidence begins. Not in a dramatic moment. Not in one perfect sentence. Not in one day where everything suddenly feels easy. Real confidence grows in a more human way. It grows when your actions become stronger than your doubts. It grows when repetition makes things lighter. It grows when time adds quiet proof to everything you have been doing. Confidence is not magic. It is not a gift that appears only for lucky people. It is the result of action, repetition, and time working together until your mind finally believes what your effort has been trying to show it all along. You can do this. You are doing this. You are already changing. Many learners make a painful mistake at this point. They look at their progress and judge it too harshly. They compare where they are with where they wish they were. They notice the moments when they still hesitate, the times when they forget a word, the places where their speech still feels basic. And because of that, they miss the deeper truth. They miss how much has already changed. They forget what it used to feel like when English seemed impossible to touch. They forget the old fear, the old delay, the old silence, the old confusion. They forget that once, even beginning felt difficult. Now they are speaking. Now they are listening with more awareness. Now they are noticing English around them. Now they are returning to it daily. That is not nothing. That is transformation. Sometimes the clearest way to see growth is to stop looking only at what is missing and start noticing what is now possible. Maybe you can say simple sentences more easily than before. Maybe you now understand small parts of audio that once felt too fast. Maybe your room no longer feels empty of language. Maybe your phone, your mirror, your ordinary moments now carry English naturally. Maybe you have stopped waiting for the perfect mood and started practicing anyway. Maybe you speak more to yourself than you did before. Maybe fear still exists, but it no longer controls everything. These changes may look small to an impatient mind, but they are not small at all. They are the signs of a learner becoming a doer. They are the marks of someone who is no longer only hoping. They are the marks of someone building. This is why real confidence feels different from excitement. Excitement is quick. It rises fast and often disappears fast. But real confidence is quieter and deeper. It comes from repeated evidence. It comes from seeing yourself return to practice on ordinary days. It comes from hearing your own voice use English, even simply. It comes from realizing that what once felt heavy now feels more familiar. It comes from looking at your life and seeing that English is not visiting by accident anymore. It is living there. That kind of confidence does not need to shout. It stands calmly inside you because it is built on something real. There is also something beautiful about the way this confidence begins to enter daily life. It starts appearing in ordinary moments before it appears in big ones. You may notice yourself thinking in English for a few seconds without planning to. You may notice a phrase rising in your mind while walking. while washing your hands, while looking at something outside. You may notice that when you want to describe your feelings, simple English comes a little faster than before. You may notice that a word you once had to search for now appears naturally. These are deeply important moments because they show that English is moving inward. It is becoming less like a lesson and more like a living part of you. That is when something powerful happens to identity. For a long time, many learners carry an old image of themselves. They see themselves as weak speakers, as hesitant learners, as people who always start and stop, as people who understand a little but cannot really use the language. That image can stay in the mind long after progress has already begun. But real confidence slowly breaks that image apart, not through empty motivation, but through truth. The truth is that you are no longer who you were when this journey felt impossible. You are not the same person anymore. You may still be growing, but growth itself is proof of change. You may still be learning, but learning with action is already a different life from learning with fear. When this truth begins to settle, you stop needing constant external proof. You stop waiting for someone else to tell you that you are improving. You begin to feel it in the structure of your days. You feel it in how English enters your thinking. You feel it in the way simple sentences come more easily. You feel it in the fact that you no longer need a perfect setup to keep going. This is one of the strongest forms of confidence because it is not borrowed from praise. It is built from personal evidence. It belongs to you. No one can give it to you, and no one can take it away easily, because it came from your own repeated choices. There will still be moments when you feel slow. There will still be days when progress feels hidden. There will still be times when you wish you were further ahead. That is part of every real journey. But those moments do not cancel what is already true. Progress is often slower than desire, but it is also deeper than emotion. Just because growth feels quiet does not mean it is weak. Just because change is gradual does not mean it is not powerful. A tree does not grow loudly, but it still becomes strong. Your English can grow the same way. Quietly, steadily, honestly. And one day, what once felt invisible will become impossible to ignore. This is why it matters to ask yourself a different kind of question. Not only how far you still want to go, but what changed in you today. Did you notice more? Did you return again? Did you speak when you once would have stayed silent? Did you listen with more patience? Did you repeat until something felt easier? Did you protect your routine? Did you allow English to stay close to your life? If the answer to even one of these is yes, then growth is happening. That yes matters. It is part of the larger story your effort is writing. Real Nuri say starring this the fact you are Monday youth and I feel right. You are now someone who lives in English in a very real way. Maybe not every minute, maybe not perfectly, maybe not with advanced words, but truly. English is in your home, your habits, your ears, your thoughts, your daily expressions, your repeated phrases, your small acts of courage. That means the language is no longer outside your world. It has entered it. And once a language begins living inside your real life, confidence becomes more natural because the connection becomes real. You are no longer trying to become someone else. You are allowing a new strength to grow inside the life you already have. That is the kind of confidence that can carry you much further than you may realize today. Because once you stop seeing English as a test and start living with it as part of yourself, the whole path opens in a different way. More speaking becomes possible. Deeper listening becomes possible. Stronger thinking becomes possible. Richer expression becomes possible. Not because you forced confidence, but because you built it honestly. Step by step, habit by habit, sentence by sentence. This is what makes the journey beautiful. It is not only changing your English, it is changing the way you see your own ability. So if you feel something new inside you now, even if you cannot fully explain it, trust it. If you feel a little more steady, a little more open, a little more ready than before, trust that too. Those are not empty feelings. They are the result of real work. They are the voice of progress becoming visible inside you. And once that voice begins to rise, it does not want to go backward. It wants to keep growing, keep expressing, keep reaching further into the life that is waiting for it. Somewhere ahead, there is an even stronger version of your English. And for the first time, it no longer feels far away. You are someone who practices English daily now, and that identity is already changing your future. Start simple today by speaking 3 sentences in your own voice, either after you wake up or just before you sleep, and feel the difference it creates. Small daily practice creates big change, and you are already on that path. Share your sentences in the comments below, and do not forget to hit the subscribe button for a better future and share this with your friends.